who is asked to be excused from today's sitting of the House. The leave which the member seeks is granted. Honorable members, correspondence has been received from the President of the Senate dated June 9, 2020, which states as follows. Dear Honorable Speaker, re-change of membership to joint select committees. Reference is made to the subject at caption. I wish to advise that at a sitting held on Wednesday, June 3, 2020, the Senate agreed on the following resolution. Be it resolved that this Senate agreed to the following appointment to the Joint Select Committee appointed to consider and report on the Representation of the People Amendment Bill 2020. Mr. Nigel De Freitas in lieu of Mr. Robert Lee Hunt. Accordingly, I respectfully request that the House of Representatives be informed of this decision at the earliest convenience, please. Respectfully, Senator the Honorable Christine Kangaloo, President of the Senate.
Bills brought from the Senate. The miscellaneous provisions, Registrar General, registration of deeds, conveyancing and law of property, real property, stamp duty, and registration of title to land, Bill 2020, in the name of the Attorney General.
The Attorney General.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in accordance with Standing Order 64(1)B, I beg to move that the next stage of the miscellaneous provisions, Registrar General, registration of deeds, conveyancing and law on property, real property, stamp duty, and registration of title to land, Bill 2020, be taken on Wednesday, June 17, 2020.
Honorable members, the question is that the next stage of the miscellaneous provisions, Registrar General, registrations of deeds, conveyancing and law of property, real property, stamp duty, and registration of title to land, Bill 2020, be taken on Wednesday, June 17, 2020. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? I think the ayes have it.
Petitions, papers.
The Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have the honor to lay the following papers. The errata to the report of the Auditor General of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago on the public accounts of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago for the financial year ended September 30th, 2019. The report of the Auditor General of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago on the consolidated financial statements of the Trinidad and Tobago Unit Trust Corporation for the year ended December 31st, 2019. The annual report on consolidated financial statements of the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago for the year ended September 30th, 2019. The report of the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago with respect to the progress of the proposals to restructure CLICO, BAT, and CIB for the quarter ended March 31st, 2020. The sector-wide approach program loan agreement between the Government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago and the Corporación Andina de Fomento in the amount of US $200 million for the development of the sea and air transport and tourism infrastructure in Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that papers 1 to 3 be referred to the Public Accounts Committee.
Honorable members, the question is that papers 1 to 3 be referred to the Public Accounts Committee. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it. The Leader of the House.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I have the honor to lay paper number 6, the ministerial response of the Ministry of Works and Transport to the 8th report of the Joint Select Committee on Land and Physical Infrastructure on an inquiry into the effectiveness of measures in place to reduce traffic congestion on the nation's roads. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Minister of Trade and Industry.
The Minister of Trade and Industry, I have the honor to lay paper number 7, the Administrative Report of the Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards for the year ended September 30th, 2017. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Minister of Education.
Madam Speaker, I have the honor to lay the Administrative Report of the Trinidad and Tobago National Schools Dietary Services Limited for the fiscal year 2016 to 2017. Thank you.
The Minister of National Security.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I have the honor to lay the Immigration Amendment Regulations 2020.
The Deputy Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I have the honor to lay paper number 10, the notification of Her Excellency, the President, in respect of the nomination of Mr. Vincel Edwards for appointment as a member of the Police Service Commission. Thank you.
Reports from committees.
The member for Tunapuna.
Madam Speaker, I have the honor to present paper number 4, the 16th report of the Joint Select Committee on Human Rights, Equality and Diversity on male academic performance in public, primary and secondary schools. I thank you.
The member for St. Joseph.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On behalf of the member for Old West, I have the honor to lay the Joint Select Committee on Finance and Legal Affairs on the inquiry into Trinidad and Tobago's performance in negotiating and creating opportunities for trade outside of CARICOM.
The Minister of Finance.
Just 1 second, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have the honor to present the second report of the Standing Finance Committee of the House of Representatives for the 5th session, 2019-2020, 11th Parliament, on the consideration of proposals for the supplementation of appropriation for the fiscal year 2020.
Prime Minister's questions.
Member for Barataria, Sanwan.
Question number 1 to the Honorable Prime Minister. Is the Prime Minister concerned that less than 30% of the nation's students are able to log on to the Ministry of Education online teaching platform?
Madam Speaker, I have no understanding of the basis for the 30%, except that it's an exaggeration when compared with the information available at the Ministry of Education. The information from the Ministry of Education indicates, Madam Speaker, that 90% of the students, in fact all students who have access to a cell phone, would be able to access the platform. And we do acknowledge, Madam Speaker, that the 10% that wouldn't have access to the platform and where there were difficulties were largely around the access to internet services. Madam Speaker, so therefore, to say that less than 30% can access the program is grossly misleading and inaccurate. And the ministry's position in terms of determining what percentage of students are accessing or can access the program would have been arrived at by information coming to the ministry from the principals and other stakeholders across the country.
Supplemental, member for Opu Chief.
Prime Minister, are you concerned at all with a statement from the tutor today, issued today, in which tutor has rejected the government's inducement for teachers and principals and have also categorically rejected the August date for the SEA? And they have raised serious questions concerning the process being used for that. In the context of the lack of preparation of the students.
I would not allow that as a supplemental question to question asked. Member for Baratari Samba.
Many students are having difficulties accessing the internet services because of cost. Would the Prime Minister consider free broadband access to the students because of the COVID at this point in time?
I do know that there are students in various parts of the country who would have difficulties of one kind or another. In fact, in assessing this situation, one of the other difficulties we faced was that even where access was available and students could have accessed it, some students are not accessing this for other reasons, either discipline or other reasons which may not detain us at this point in time. However, I would leave that question to the ministry to determine the logistics of any such proposal.
Supplemental, member for Baratari Samba.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the Prime Minister consider looking at the free laptop service to students who are unable to afford cell phones or otherwise?
Prime Minister.
I'm not aware of what free laptop service he's talking about, Madam Speaker.
Member for Point of Peer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Honourable Prime Minister, given that the government undertook a registration process of Venezuelan migrants in an effort to provide them with registration cards which would have allowed them to live and work in this country for 1 year, could the Prime Minister provide the status of these individuals as the 1 year period comes to an end?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I thought the opposition had forgotten that and the expulsion of these people would have gone off the agenda. However, Madam Speaker, yes, thanks for reminding us that we did intervene and allow approximately 16,000 Venezuelans to reside in Trinidad and Tobago. They were registered, and that was done last July. And as of today, none of those registrants have seen their registration expire. And going forward from July, there will be an expiration on the original 1 year offering. But Madam Speaker, given what has happened in the intervening period with the COVID and all that we're experiencing, we anticipate that the government of Trinidad and Tobago will continue to extend this facility to the Venezuelans within our border up on, we can probably say that the Cabinet will be asked to do so up until December 2020.
Supplemental, member for Point of Peer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honourable Prime Minister, based on what you just said about the Venezuelan individuals living in Trinidad during the COVID period, do you feel that this government, your government, is responsible for the sustenance of these individuals during this COVID period?
No, we're not. There are lots of Trinidad and Tobago citizens all over the world, and those countries are not responsible for their sustenance. What we have been responsible for is giving them the facility to reside within Trinidad and Tobago and to make their living here by being productive citizens of Venezuela, temporarily domiciled in Trinidad and Tobago.
Here.
Speaker. To the Honourable Prime Minister, given the statements of the Minister of Finance that, and I quote, it is likely possible that there may be an election before the end of this fiscal year by September 30th at the Standing Finance Committee on Wednesday, June 10, 2020, would the Prime Minister state the specific election date?
Madam Speaker, I'm very happy to notice that my friend is paying attention to the Finance Committee meeting. I have given a lot of information on this matter, Madam Speaker, and the information remains valid, and that is, in Trinidad and Tobago, elections will be called when they're due. It is not this government's intention to not call elections when elections are due. And I have assisted my friends before, and I can assist them further. The election in Trinidad and Tobago will be called no later than December 23rd, 2020, as per the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago.
Member for Barataria-Sanu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Question number 4 to the Honourable Prime Minister. Is the Prime Minister aware that the construction site preparation and start of the foundation for the Arima Hospital began in late 2014?
Madam Speaker, I am not aware of that. What I'm aware of is that the people of Arima are very nervous that there's somebody trying to thief their hospital. Madam Speaker, the people of Arima have just received a spanking new hospital built by the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And this matter about who owns it and who built it, the record will show, Madam Speaker, if you look at the question, it speaks specifically to construction site preparation, meaning cut some grass, move some old wood, and get ready for construction. Madam Speaker, the facts are as follows, that not 2014, June 2015, and I may assist my colleague, under the last government, that was the commencement date of this project, June 2015. What happened was that functionaries of the last government went to the site with a large picture, held both sides of the picture, took a picture of the architectural drawings and spoke about a hospital. The designs of that hospital was substantially completed in January 2016. The government changed in September 2015. The construction started in March 2016. The topping off ceremony for that project, for that hospital, took place September 2017. Madam Speaker, the construction continued apace, and when the COVID hit us, the hospital was substantially complete, allowing the Ministry of Health to use the 3rd and 4th floors of the building as part of our COVID-19 preparation. The construction then was completed by the contractor and handed over to UDCOT on June 4th, 2020. And UDCOT handed it over to the ministry, and the formal opening of that hospital took place on June 9th, 2020. Madam Speaker, the hospital, the last government...
Your time is up. Supplemental?
Yeah.
Member for Barataria-Sanu.
Prime Minister, can you indicate to this House, if you can, that how long does it take to start a project in this country?
Yeah.
It's a supplemental question. Member for Point of Hill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Honourable Prime Minister, given the public response by the President of Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association, tutor, that the association would have preferred to have the SAA examinations held in October to allow students to reclimatize and guarantee their readiness, could the Prime Minister state if the government would consider tutors' proposal in the best interest of students and fiscal sustainability?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, this matter is one that concerns a lot of stakeholders, of which tutor is but one. We have parents, we have the denominational bodies, we have the students, and we have the wider national community. Specific to tutor and consultations, what the ministry has done is to canvass the opinion of all those who are involved in having a say, of which tutor is the main one. The position arrived at is that there were two competing positions. One, which is to have the exams as early as possible, and the parents and students prefer that option. The other was tutor's option, which is to have the exam in October. Madam Speaker, if the elections, keep saying elections, if the examinations are held in October, as tutor is suggesting, it would mean that the first term of the year 2021 would be lost, because if the exam is held in October, it means that the 2-month period going forward would ensure that no placement of students could take place in what should be the first term. Those persons, like mainly parents and all those advocating on the students' part, are saying that if we hold the exams in August, and the date of August 20th is looked at, then it is possible to get the exams done and to, with minimal loss of time and disruption, get the students placed and save a substantial portion of the first term. To not do that is to lose the first term when there's an option to try and save it. And that's where the difference is, Madam Speaker. So the government is prepared to listen, and we have been listening and consulting. But at the end of the day, a decision has to be made. What should be confronting us now is whether tutor would cooperate with the rest of the country to ensure that our students' interests come first.
Supplemental, member for point of order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Honourable Prime Minister, based on what you just said, with the first term, if the exam is held in August, as you just stated, what time would the first term restart, given between normally first term starts in September?
Madam Speaker, my understanding is that if the exams are held on the 20th of August, the vast majority of the school-age population would not be affected and would return to school with some semblance of normalcy. Those students who are affected by the exam and to be influenced by the outcome of the exam, a matter of a number of weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, 6 weeks, they will be disadvantaged for only 6 weeks, and then the placement will be done and they will start their first term a little late, but the rest of the school year would have been saved for the other students.
Supplemental, member for point of order.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Prime Minister, do you feel it is prudent to spend $20 million to assist in the 1 month of assisting the students preparing for that August exam, as you just stated?
Madam Speaker, if that is what it takes to get the students into school, yes, it is prudent. People have stolen much more money than that, and we're not interested in this country. The money that is being spent, Madam Speaker, for people to be paid to work during their vacation is their money. The money that the government of Trinidad and Tobago spends is the money of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And if they have to spend it on the teachers to get the students into school, that is prudently spent, and this government makes no apology for that.
For point of order.
Prime Minister, given that you agree to spend the 20 million and the nurses are out there crying for some sort of payment during this COVID period, are you giving some consideration to reward the nurses?
And the answer is...
Prime Minister, I will not allow that as a supplemental question. Member for Kubasa.
Prime Minister, are you aware that the offer of the financial stipend in relation to the SCA exam has been rejected by the General Council of Tutor?
Well, Madam Speaker, I hope that is not so, because if that is so, then what are our teachers telling us? That they are not prepared to work in the vacation, even if they're going to be paid to work in the vacation, even if that is the only way that we can save the first term of the year. That is what they will be saying, Madam Speaker. And if that is what prevails, then the parents and children should know that. I am hoping, Madam Speaker, as I said earlier on, that in this matter of this COVID, we are all in this together, and we are all having to make sacrifices. And if that is what they have to make and they refuse to make it, Madam Speaker, then I would be very disappointed.
Supplemental, member for Kubasa.
Thank you. Prime Minister, could you inform this House if the health and safety guidelines as it relates to the concerns of tutor has been addressed, and in terms of providing guidelines in writing to the recognized majority union, which will govern the conduct of the exam?
Madam Speaker, An exam that is supposed to take place on August 20th. It is now mid-June. Those are issues that can be addressed and addressed properly and which will be and must be addressed, but they cannot be a basis for not making the decision as to having the exam.
Member for Couva South. Question number 6.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Prime Minister, in light of the refusal of the Attorney General on Wednesday, the 3rd of June 2020, to release all legal opinions in relation to the Interception of Communications Amendment Bill 2020, is the Prime Minister willing to direct the Attorney General to do so in the public's interest and transparency?
Madam Speaker, I don't know what is the significance of the date June 3rd, 2020, but what I do know is that unlike what happened before, in this government, the Attorney General gives legal advice to the government, to the cabinet, and not the other way around.
Member for Couva South.
Could the Prime Minister inform this House how many legal opinions was received by the Attorney General in relation to this particular legislation?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, I would like to repeat this answer. In the government of Trinidad and Tobago, the Attorney General advises the Cabinet on matters of law. The Cabinet does not advise the Attorney General on matters of law. Whether it is 1 or 25 opinions, that is the position of policy in this government. And if you file by notice how many pieces of advice he got, the Attorney General would be able to answer you in the appropriate way at the appropriate time. Just file by notice.
Supplemental, Member for Couva South.
The cost of the legal opinion that was received by from Senior Counsel Fayad Hussein on this particular issue.
Not allow that as a supplemental question. Member for Couva North.
Madam Speaker, to the Honourable Prime Minister, given statements reported in the media on the Tobago Self-Government Bill 2018 attributed to the Prime Minister, could the Prime Minister inform the House if this bill will be placed on the government's legislative agenda prior to the dissolution of the Parliament in September?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, this is the most amazing question. And I too, like my colleague from Couva North, I'm a little taken aback by the article written by my schoolmate Winfred James. But I'm also even more amazed that a member of Parliament could be asking me in this House about a bill that is on the agenda, whether it's part of the government's legislative agenda. If it was not part of the government's legislative agenda, how did it get to the Parliament and get to a Joint Select Committee of Parliament which is functioning? The Joint Select Committee of Parliament on this matter is functioning. I have seen it said in that article by my colleague Winfred James that I have said that the matter will be withdrawn by me. I have said no such thing. And therefore, Madam Speaker, for a member of Parliament to come here and ask me about the government's agenda until September, it is because it is on the government's agenda why it is in this Parliament, and I'll go further. It is because the party I lead is the only party at convention that has committed itself to further internal self-government for Tobago. We are the only party at convention that put the issue by resolution and said and did what we have done to bring it to a Joint Select Committee of Parliament, which is now under process. So I don't know where that question is coming from kindergarten in the Parliament.
Member for Couva North.
Oh, Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister is very sensitive over this. Prime Minister, you said, Prime Minister...
Members, can we have some order, please?
Prime Minister, referring to your statement in that article, on that article, you said you didn't have the requirement to pass that bill. Are you in a position to say that when this bill is brought to the Parliament for the second reading, that you are prepared to remove the special majority requirement to give Tobago self-government?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, this is getting more ridiculous by the minute. It's a statement of fact. 23 votes in this Parliament cannot change the Constitution in that way. And as a member of the committee, the member has a responsibility to stop confusing the public. She is a member of that member from Couva North, Madam Speaker, is on the committee. Everybody knows how many seats the government has in the parliament. It would require a majority larger than what this government has in the parliament. So to ask me today whether I will do this, I will do that, Madam Speaker, I plead your assistance. Is there anticipation here?
Member for Arima.
In the light of warnings by a senior U.S. envoy at Wednesday's AmCham annual general meeting that Trinidad and Tobago businesses should not trade with Venezuela, is this country still standing by its position that it is not bound by sanctions imposed by the Rio Treaty?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, notwithstanding the best efforts of my colleagues on the other side to create disturbance between Trinidad and Tobago and the United States, I would go as far as to say I don't know that it took a meeting at AmCham for Trinidad and Tobago's businesses to know that they don't trade with Venezuela. And that has not been happening. Notwithstanding the efforts of the opposition to tell the world the vast untruth that we had traded fuel to Venezuela. But furthermore, let me clarify finally, Trinidad and Tobago does not recognize Juan Guaido as the president of Venezuela, nor his appointees as representing the government of Venezuela. Trinidad and Tobago acknowledges under the UN Charter that the sitting government of Venezuela is the Maduro government. And whenever any agency like the OAS or anybody else allow Guaido representatives to participate in decisions, those decisions are queried by Trinidad and Tobago, and we reserve our position on that. And that is punto final.
Could withdraw, and if we don't, we must abide by the sanctions. Do you intend to withdraw from the Rio Treaty?
Madam Speaker, these parliamentarians are coming here and telling me the United States say. Madam Speaker, is that how they make policy for Trinidad and Tobago? The United States say? I would have thought he'll get up here and say, Trinidad and Tobago has said what I have just said. We took a position which is our right not to acknowledge Guaido as the president of Venezuela, and you coming here and telling me the United States say? Madam Speaker, I wish my colleagues on the other side would stop undermining the foreign policy of Trinidad and Tobago. There was a time in an earlier era when people in Parliament would have been put to the sword for that.
Supplemental, member for.
Okay, I give way. I give way to her.
Member for Oropuch East.
Thank you very much. Prime Minister, in light of your statement and response, could you confirm that this country, without a cabinet decision, wrote the OAS for a reservation on the decisions taken in January to what is called register your reservation, which became a footnote, and you are still binding by those decisions of the international body in relation to the Rio Treaty?
Madam Speaker, the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago is comprised of ministers acting on the authority of the Cabinet, and the Foreign Minister and his team, they are part of the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago insofar as these decisions are made. This attempt to separate the Foreign Ministry from the Cabinet is puerile and dangerous.
Prime Minister, is it in Trinidad and Tobago's best interest for there to be policy dissonance between our official position on sanctions, that of our largest trading partner on the second hand, and that of the advice given to local businesses by a senior U.S. envoy?
Madam Speaker, are you hearing my colleague from Arima? Madam Speaker, a position taken by Trinidad and Tobago in the well-considered and civilly put forward position of our foreign policy is here being attacked by members of the House of Parliament on the grounds that another country has an issue with it. Madam Speaker, Trinidad and Tobago is a responsible country acting responsibly, and notwithstanding the best effort of the opposition, we maintain our best relations with the United States of America. These people for real?
Supplemental, member for Oropuch East.
Much. Prime Minister, are you aware that the position you are articulating is in contradiction with the Venezuelan constitution itself, and you are undermining the national interests of Trinidad and Tobago?
Here we have it. Here we have it.
I'm not allowing that as a supplemental question. It's out of order. Member for Arima.
Have you, as Prime Minister, taken steps to advise government ministries and state agencies that they should not do business with Venezuela? And if they do, they should seek your prior approval.
Madam Speaker, I have done no such thing because it's not necessary up until the attempt by the United National Congress to tell the Americans that we had sold fuel to Venezuela. There was absolutely no issue, and there still is no issue because that lie has not succeeded.
Member for Couva South.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Prime Minister, in light of the COVID-19, could the Prime Minister inform this House what decision has the government arrived at in regard to the seasonal agricultural program in Canada under a long-standing arrangement existing for several decades?
Madam Speaker, this is called the Rip Van Winkle question. The Minister of National Security at a public press conference to the world 2 or 3 days ago, Wednesday, answered this question in its totality. And the answer was that, yes, we have come to a position after long consideration. We have been in consultation with our CARICOM partners. We have harmonized our position with Jamaica, and we receive a pre-action protocol from one of their imps saying that they are going to sue the government for not doing it. But what the government has done, the government has come to a position that we are aware that at the farming locations in Canada, there are outbreaks of COVID-14 where deaths are even reported. We have indicated to those who are interested to go to those locations that these are the conditions. We have also indicated that we are going to facilitate their exit, but that there are certain concerns, and the Attorney General Office is doing release and discharge and indemnity agreement, which will be applicable to their exit, and therefore everything, Madam Speaker, would be ready for them to go and take their chances as they are demanding to do and get employment in Canada, but being told that the Canadian government's position is that if they do get infected in Canada, they will have to make their way back home to Trinidad and Tobago because they will not be allowed to get health care treatment in Canada. Madam Speaker, we've made that public last Wednesday in a fulsome discourse by the Minister of National Security, and I don't know how this question ended up here coming from my colleague from Couva South.
But for Couva South.
Prime Minister, based on your response, could you inform this House if the Cabinet has taken a decision that if our nationals return to Trinidad and Tobago, they will have to pay for their quarantine?
Madam Speaker, the Cabinet has taken no such decision.
Thank you very much.
Urgent questions.
Member for Arima.
Health. Could the Minister provide the status of the decentralization of COVID-19 testing at major hospitals throughout the country, including Scarborough General Hospital, Port of Spain General Hospital, San Fernando General Hospital, Sangre Grande Hospital, and the Eric Williams Medical Sciences Complex?
Minister of Health.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the issue of testing is one that causes a lot of angst globally because of lack of information and understanding. Trinidad and Tobago, like other member states, use CARFA's gold standard PCR, which is 99.6% accurate. We did not follow the UNC in doing rapid tests or antibody testing. We did not follow the CDC, where initially those tests were incorrect. To date, we are testing at two sites, CARFA and the virology lab on the compound of Eric Williams. So you have two sites up now. Tobago received their machine. They are now in the process of clearing through customs their test kits That will be a third site. Because of the embargo placed by the United States on equipment and supplies leaving the United States, the PCR machine at San Fernando, which is an Abbott machine, the test kits only came in today because of the embargo. So in very short order, we would have moved from 1 testing site to now 2 to 4. So that will be more than sufficient to cover Trinidad and Tobago. One of the reasons we are not looking to expand, and I had this discussion with the Chief Medical Officer, is to manage the quality assurance and the quality control issues. So we will be having 4 sites up and running in the shortest space of time. Currently, we have 2. Thank you very much.
Member for Barrett Harrison.
Doing randomized testing during that process and increasing the amount of areas?
Yes.
Minister
Thank you. So we have, in fact, been doing randomized testing through the communities testing program, and to date we have done 1,558 through the counties in Trinidad and Tobago. So your answer is yes, and we started that since the 11th of May. But, Madam Speaker, one of the reasons why we just can't test, and I'll give you some interesting statistics. Acute viral illness in January of 2020, the cases ranked as follows, between 1,005 to 1,009. Since we instituted the public health measures, do you know what is the incidence of viral illnesses in Trinidad and Tobago today? 230. We are now at 15% of our January figures, and that impacts on the number of COVID suspect cases, because suspect cases form a subset of acute viral illnesses. So acute viral illnesses have dropped by 85% since January of this year to now, from a high of 1,505 to 230. So, Madam Speaker, yes, we are doing community testing, but all the measures this government has put in place, from closing schools on 13th of March, closing the borders of 22nd of March, have had a positive impact on a significant reduction of all viral illnesses, respiratory, including gastrointestinal. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Member for Arima.
Could the Minister explain why, given this decentralization and the statistics that he has articulated, why it is that a country like St. Kitts Nevis has, on a per capita basis, done 20 times the testing Trinidad and Tobago?
Madam Speaker, you cannot, as I have said from the beginning, you cannot compare apples with oranges. I have just said the data shows a precipitous decline in acute viral illnesses, which will be a function of, and later a function of, the number of tests that you do. So if nobody has respiratory symptoms, if nobody is coughing, if nobody has a runny nose, if acute viral illnesses drop from 1,505 to 230, your need for testing is significantly less. And then you have to look, when did St. Kitts close their borders? When did St. Kitts close schools? When did St. Kitts ask people to wear masks? When did St. Kitts close off non-essential work? So, as I have said, you cannot compare apples with oranges. Trinidad and Tobago has been ranked #1 in the world because this government followed its own path. Thank you very much.
Member for Couva North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the Minister of National Security, in light of the recent murder of a woman by a repeat offender due to domestic violence, could the Minister state how soon will the electronic bracelets program be implemented simultaneously with the issuance of protection orders?
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, first of all, it pained the government to see this recent incident, and our sympathy goes out with the family. Madam Speaker, the government is about to proclaim the legislation, the electronic monitoring legislation, as we debated it recently. The team and set up to do the electronic monitoring is all in place and ready to begin straight away. But there is a process before protection orders can be issued by the court. So once it is proclaimed, which will happen within the next week, we at National Security are ready to implement and will do so once the courts begin making the relevant protection orders.
Questions or notice? Requests for leave to move the adjournment of the House on definite matters of urgent public importance. Statements by ministers.
Prime Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I am authorized by the Cabinet to make the following statement. On January 13, 1992, I assumed office as the Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries for what at the end was a term of 3 years and 10 months. My first job in the public sector was as a fisheries officer in Tobago. So by the time I was appointed minister with responsibility for fisheries, I was in fisheries management, and more specifically, for the fact that for 76 years, the country's fisheries resources were managed via a piece of legislation with a mere 9 sections. One of my early tasks, Madam Speaker, was to move to review that short piece of legislation in the context of all that had been happening globally. In particular, the need to preserve fish breeding grounds, the need to improve craft and fisherfolk safety, and the need to ensure that we are fishing sustainably. In 1992, Madam Speaker, under my leadership as Minister, the Minister of Agriculture, Lands and Marine Resources, in collaboration with the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, FAO, initiated a process for updating the fisheries legislative framework. This was in recognition of the severe constraints in the range of management options that could be applied under the 1916 Fisheries Act. The limited legislative support for implementing international obligations as a consequence of Trinidad and Tobago ratifying, acceding, and becoming signatory to a number of fisheries and fisheries-related regional and international agreements and conventions, and the need to implement international best practices in fisheries management. Madam Speaker, when I took the ministry along this route 28 years ago, I could not imagine that the final product would arrive 28 years later. Madam Speaker, upon my appointment as Prime Minister on September 8, 2015, this work came back to me, and it fell to me as Prime Minister to appoint a Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries to bring this work to fruition. I am here today, Madam Speaker, because the work, 28 years later, is sufficiently advanced to lay today a fisheries management bill in this House. Madam Speaker, this process spanned 3 decades, with legislative exercises being undertaken in 5 major periods: 1992 to 1997, 2004 to 2007, 2010 to 2012, 2013 to 2015, and 2017 to present, with 5 draft bills being developed in 2007, 2011, 2014, 2015, and this 2020 bill that is being laid in this House today. Of these 5 draft bills, Madam Speaker, the 2011 and 2014 drafts were presented to previous cabinets but did not go much further. The 2018 draft bill, presented by the current Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, was approved by our cabinet as a draft, and this has advanced to the stage as a 2020 bill ready for the consideration of Parliament. Madam Speaker, let me briefly retrace our steps in this 28 years. 1992 to 1997. In 1992, Cabinet approved the first comprehensive review of the legislative framework for fisheries management in Trinidad and Tobago. Then in 1993, consultations with stakeholders commenced, supported by a legal counsel of the FAO. Recommendations included the creation of new and comprehensive legislation to consolidate existing legislation and extend the substantive and geographical coverage to address issues of concern to the fishing industry and the needs of fisheries administration and development. Subsequently, in 1995, the FAO Legal Office in Rome produced the document entitled A Bill, an Act to Repeal the Fisheries Act, Chapter 6751, to provide for the management of the fisheries resources in the waters over which Trinidad and Tobago has jurisdiction and for matters incidental thereto. This 1995 bill was drafted in collaboration with the Fisheries Division and the Chief Parliamentary Council, with inputs from several stakeholders, including the Institute of Marine Affairs, the IMA, Maritime Services Division of the Ministry of Works and Transport, Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard, and the Tobago House of Assembly. The 1995 bill underwent extensive review between 1996 and 1997. Madam Speaker, nothing further happened until 2004. In 2004, efforts to advance the bill resumed, and in accordance with the 2004 Cabinet decision, a consultant was hired via the FAO to expedite the revision and finalization of the 1995 bill. Stakeholders were again consulted, and then by 2007, Madam Speaker, the draft Fisheries Management Bill and 2007 draft Fisheries Management Regulations were produced. We fast forward, Madam Speaker, to 2010. There were further delays between 2007 and 2010. And based on these delays, Madam Speaker, in 2010, Cabinet agreed to the establishment of a Cabinet-appointed committee chaired by the Director of Fisheries to review, update, and finalize the 2007 version of the bill and regulations. This committee produced the 2011 draft Fisheries Management Bill and 2011 draft Fisheries Management Regulations, which emanated from extensive review and amendment of the 2007 bill and regulations by the Cabinet-appointed committee, with inputs and guidance from both technical and legal experts from ministries and government agencies. In 2012, the 2011 bill and regulations were submitted to Cabinet and was subsequently referred to the Legislative Review Committee of the Cabinet for further consideration and advice to Cabinet. Madam Speaker, in 2013 and 2014, the 2011 bill was subjected to further review by stakeholders. The comments from this review were considered in a process of amendment with the assistance of a legal consultant with expertise in criminal law, and these amendments led to the development of a 2014 bill, which was submitted to Cabinet and again referred to the Legislative Review Committee of the Cabinet for further consideration and advice to Cabinet. Although the 2014 bill was submitted to Cabinet, the desire to make further amendments persisted, and after several further consultations with stakeholders, a 2015 bill was produced. Madam Speaker, if we examine the period of 2015 to 2020, in September to October 2015, the government commissioned a review of the existing draft legislation and a review of the ministry's policies and activities in fisheries and aquaculture. In November 2015, The European Commission Directorate General for Maritime Affairs and Fisheries, ECDG Mare, conducted a mission to this country to review and evaluate national fisheries management arrangements to address illegal, unreported, and unregulated fisheries. The review was conducted in the context of the country's compliance with binding obligations under existing international conventions and laws to which we have acceded. The evaluation report stressed that the current national fisheries legal framework does not specifically address the IUU fishery and identified a number of deficiencies in the administrative and legal framework of fisheries management, interagency collaboration for integrated fisheries monitoring, control and surveillance, and cooperation with other states' vessels who utilize our ports. The ECDG Mare reviewed the 2015 bill and concluded that a number of improvements were needed in order to ensure fulfillment of basic principles of international law. Madam Speaker, let me say again, notwithstanding the establishment of a cabinet-appointed committee in 2010, the 2011 Draft Fisheries Management Bill and 2011 Draft Fisheries Management Regulations produced in 2011, the inputs and guidance from various experts, further review by stakeholders in 2013 and 2014, the development of a 2014 bill, further consultations with stakeholders, and the development of a 2015 bill. The European Commission Directorate General for Marine Affairs and Fisheries found that 2015 Fisheries Management Bill to be woefully inadequate. In particular, the Commission found that there was a severe inadequacy in the National Fisheries Management Arrangement to address illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. Madam Speaker, on that basis, this country was pre-identified as a non-cooperating state in the global fight against illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, and was issued a yellow card as a warning. If Trinidad and Tobago did not make progress on the areas of deficiencies in national arrangements to combat illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, the country faced listing as a non-cooperating third country and would be assigned a red card in accordance with the Article 33 of the EU Regulation 1005/2008 concerning the fight against illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing. The implications of a red card, Madam Speaker, are catastrophic, not only to our local fisheries sector, but also to our regional neighbors and to our relationship on this and other matters with the European Union. At the same time, Madam Speaker, there was an ambitious project in the 2010 to 2015 period on the abuses of the law and regulations dealing with trawling, particularly by large industrial trawlers. Upon review in 2016, the Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries concluded that the work attempted in the 2010 to 2015 period was inadequate, largely impractical, and in large measure was likely to expose the state to significant liabilities. It was the view of the government that the legislative work on the management of fisheries should take precedence. Madam Speaker, on the recommendation of the Commission, this country instituted a plan of action to address deficiencies highlighted in the evaluation report. In 2016, Cabinet agreed to the establishment of a Cabinet-appointed committee for a term of 6 months to finalize and initiate the implementation of an action plan to address illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing in the ports and waters under the jurisdiction of Trinidad and Tobago. To accept the offer of technical assistance from the ECDG Mare to review the 1916 Fisheries Act and to develop a new fisheries management bill which will meet all this country's local, regional, and international commitments. Furthermore, Madam Speaker, the government, via the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, embarked on a project with FAO titled TCPF, Strengthening Fisheries Legislation in Trinidad and Tobago, focus on illegal, unreported, and unregulated fisheries, with a timeline of July 2017 to December 2018. Madam Speaker, after much stakeholder consultation, in April 2018, a first draft of this 2020 bill was finalized for the consideration of Cabinet before being referred to the LRC of the Cabinet. Madam Speaker, in June 2018, 2 years ago, the Cabinet approved the first draft of this 2020 bill and requested that it be reviewed by the Legislative Review Committee of the Cabinet, supported by the Chief Parliamentary Council and other officers of the Ministry of the Attorney General and Legal Affairs. Since that time, Madam Speaker, this bill was subjected to extensive work by the Legislative Review Committee, the Chief Parliamentary Council, the Fisheries Division of the Ministry of Agriculture, Lands and Fisheries, the FAO, and the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation in Agriculture, ICA, and several other stakeholders, including the Tobago House of Assembly, fisherfolk, and fisherfolk groups. Madam Speaker, let me be very specific on these consultations, which took place even after the Cabinet approved the first draft of this 2020 bill and requested that it be reviewed by the LRC of the Cabinet, supported by the CPC. Madam Speaker, there were 153 organizations represented at these consultations. This consultation generated a 200-page report. There were 539 recommendations for amendment to the bill, and these recommendations were received from more than 50 organizations attending the consultations. Madam Speaker, of these 539 recommendations, 204 were accepted for inclusion in the bill. Thereafter, the bill was previously approved as a first draft by the Cabinet in June 2018, and it underwent significant review by LRC and CPC and FAO in order to accommodate the views expressed at the consultation and approved for further consideration. Madam Speaker, before this House today, laid by me as Prime Minister, is the end result of a work I initiated 28 years ago. Madam Speaker, the FAO has supported Trinidad and Tobago all the way. The European Commission and its various organs, including our country reps, have been extremely supportive, particularly on the issue of illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. The Inter-American Institute for Cooperation in Agriculture, ICA, has provided technical support. Many regional and local organizations, including the UWI, the THA, and various ministries, have provided technical input. The Ministry of Agriculture, Lands and Fisheries, through about 15 ministers, numerous permanent secretaries, and more than a dozen directors of fisheries, have been the lead ministry on the creation of this final piece of legislation. For every version of a bill, Madam Speaker, the Chief Parliamentary Council and other officers of the Ministry of the Attorney General and Legal Affairs have guided us through this very lengthy process. Madam Speaker, the gratitude I express spans 28 years and more. The bill before you now strengthens and incorporates fisheries management and international obligations in relation to its antecedent drafts, as it allows for broader responsibilities, jurisdictions, and powers in relation to fisheries management by the state and its representatives. It creates a legal basis for compliance by stakeholders. Madam Speaker, it establishes a legal framework for the state to fulfill its obligations as a flag, port, coastal, and market state in accordance with the existing international framework for fisheries management and related sectors. Madam Speaker, It establishes the legal basis for the state to collect revenue through application fees for authorizations, licenses, and permits, as well as penalties that are significant for deterring illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. And Madam Speaker, it provides a way into the future in which the law can be relevant for at least another 20 years, as it provides for validity of measures to give effect to other agreements and treaties which Trinidad and Tobago may adopt in the future. Madam Speaker, I save my final praise and thanks to the stakeholders whose lives and livelihood this bill seeks to protect. Vessel monitoring and other safety and security measures would make seafaring less dangerous. Families should expect loved ones to leave home, go to sea, and return home safely. The strict management of breeding grounds and the sustainable fishing of our waters are critical. We must ensure that in the context of all that is happening around us, we can secure livelihoods, particularly in the many fishing communities around Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, for the first time in 104 years, a bill is being laid to replace the old Fisheries Act. After several attempts, this bill represents our best efforts to date. It has been endorsed by our international and regional partners. It takes into consideration the bulk of views expressed by local stakeholders. And Madam Speaker, even then, a bill of this size, over 200 clauses, requiring a special majority, is best handled through a joint select committee of this Parliament. I so recommend that this House adopts this course.
Member for Oropouche West. I recognize the member for Oropouche West.
Thank you. Honorable Prime Minister, having taken 28 years to bring this bill, would this bill include protection for all fisher folk?
Member for Oropouche West, you will have to say something before.
Pursuant to section 24(4), please. Yeah. Standing order. Having taken, Honorable Prime Minister, 28 years to bring this bill, would this bill include any clause for coastal protection for all fisher folk, including the Cali Bay fishermen?
Madam Speaker, the last time I looked at the map of Trinidad and Tobago, Cali Bay was part of Trinidad and Tobago. And therefore, what I've said here, applying to fisher folk of Trinidad and Tobago, applies equally to the fisher folk of Cali Bay.
Personal explanations, introduction of bills. The Finance Supplementary Appropriation Financial Year 2020 Bill 2020 in the name of the Minister of Finance.
The Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, I beg to move the following motion standing in my name. Be it resolved that this House adopt the second report I'm so sorry. In accordance with Standing Order 64(1)B, I beg to move that the next stage of the Finance Supplementary Appropriation Financial Year 2020, Bill 2020, be taken later in the proceedings.
Honourable members, the question is that the next stage of the Finance Supplementary Appropriation Financial Year 2020 Bill 2020 be taken later in the proceedings. All in favour say aye. Any against? The ayes have it.
The Fisheries Management Bill 2020 in the name of the Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries.
Leader of the House.
Thank you very kindly, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that in accordance with Standing Order 64(1)C, the Fisheries Management Bill 2020 be referred to the Joint Select Committee to be established for its consideration and report by August 31st, 2020. Madam Speaker, the names will be given in a subsequent motion.
Honourable members, the question is that in accordance with Standing Order 64.1c, the Fisheries Management Bill 2020 be referred to the Joint Select Committee to be established for its consideration and to report by August 31st, 2020. All in favour say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it.
Motions relating to the business or sittings of the House and moved by a minister.
Leader of the House.
Thank you very kindly, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, notwithstanding the resolution of the House on Monday, April 27, 2020, related to the speaking time during the period of the current global pandemic, and following discussions with the Chief Whip, I beg to move that for today's debate on motion number 4 only, the speaking time be as follows. Minister of Finance and the first opposition speaker be permitted to speak for 1 hour, and all other members be permitted to speak for 30 minutes with no extensions.
This is put without any debate. Honourable members, the question is that for today's debate on motion number 4 only, speaking time be as follows.